all the moms out there that are constantly worried that, am I good enough? You are. You are the mom that your child needs, and you will grow into the mom that they need as they grow and develop. As a mom, that is so hard to really just internalize and understand every time that you feel like you're failing because something isn't going right. I am professional and I am a working mom and I'm brilliant and I know what I'm doing. And I'm also going to always take care of my kid first when I need to.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Eli Adams. Today's episode is brought to you by fireusmarketing.com, where SEO solutions pave the way to digital excellence. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode where we are joined by April Young Monkarsh. April is a CMO and co-founder of the Salt Lake City-based digital marketing agency, Markor. In a nutshell, she's a powerhouse marketer who is deeply invested in supporting initiatives that help women in business and leadership. As an expert on LinkedIn, she also helps other startups and business owners build their brands, connect with their audiences, and establish their thought leadership with the goal of taking their business to the next level. Welcome to the show, April.
Thank you, Eli. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm real excited to have you on. I've been thinking about having you on the podcast since the very beginning because you are an expert in all the areas that I want to learn from. And so this is going to be fun for me because I'm going to learn as well. So, the first time that we connected, just to kind of let the audience know how we know each other, the first time we connected, really, I think we were connected on LinkedIn for a little while, but we shared the stage at Silicon Slopes at talking about AI, right?
Yes, correct. For an AI event for the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And I got to know you and your husband and some of the other awesome people in the area that love AI. So if you want to dig into AI today, I'd love to do that as well. So let's just jump into the show. So tell me about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? How did you go from where you were, what you want to be when you grew up, to where you're at now?
That is a super long story, but
All
I will keep it short for this sake. But I'm a Southern born and bred. Been living all over the South the vast majority of my life until I moved out to Salt Lake a couple of years ago. I went to school in Tennessee. The last place that I lived was out in East Tennessee in Knoxville. And that's where I went to school, actually, at East Tennessee State University in Johnson City. And that's where I'd say, I guess, that journey began for how I got to where I am today. I worked for every single one of the local newspapers all up and down East Tennessee as a photojournalist and a writer and a reporter. And from there, expanded to really creating a digital presence for these places. I'm sure it is no surprise to anybody that these local newspapers, especially in rural East Tennessee, don't have any sort of digital presence. And they certainly didn't that long ago.
How long ago was that?
2009, 8, 9, 10-ish.
Okay, yeah.
Would have been like the very beginning of people even understanding like the capabilities of social media and the importance of an online presence. And before people were really consuming digital media the way they are now. But that's where I started, graduated there with a communications degree in journalism. But ever since I was maybe 7 years old, I've always been a writer, and I wrote poetry on napkins and like loose leaf paper from school. I taught my little sister to read and write. So writing people's stories has really just been part of who I am. I'm a storyteller and a writer at heart. And that's really translated to everything that I've done. Out of necessity and growth is where that shift into the digital world really happened. In 2009, most people, well, people who were alive then and in the working world know that was a giant shift for our world as we know it. Like the economy turned upside down. There wasn't a job for a journalist to be had. I'll tell you that. Anyone graduating at that time was looking at a very bleak job space and future. And as far as the journalism world goes, no one knew at that time where it was going. That was when digital subscriptions were just like barely getting their foot going. And a lot of print were facing like huge paper costs and just execution on being able to continue in the print world and being able to afford that.
Yeah.
So the change really shook up all of the journalism world. And businesses like that really need to figure out, like, what are you going to do for your future? How are you going to
Mm-hmm.
stay alive? If you are a print only publication, you've got to figure out who your audience is and how to continue to engage them if you can no longer print on paper, or
Right.
if it's no longer feasible and no longer profitable for you to do so.
Did you take a role in helping them figure that out in Tennessee?
Exactly. So that year, actually, for several of the papers that I worked for that year, we had a huge tornadoes come through that April,
Oh,
actually,
wow. Yeah.
that ripped through my hometown, destroyed a lot of homes and a lot of lives. And they were a huge surprise. And people, when power went out, and when, like, people didn't know where to go, and people didn't know how to find out what was going on and how to find help, that's where the beginning of social programs for, in particular for the Maryville Daily Times, where I was working at the time,
Yeah.
I was head over all of their social and their digital presence. So it was really like reaching out to all of our readers and finding out if they're okay. Like, what are you seeing? Where are power lines down? What roads do you want to let our readers know and let everyone know to avoid? Where is
Mm.
it scariest? Where do you need help? And it really became like a reach out on Twitter and on Facebook on, like, how to find safety, how to find your
Mhm.
people, and how to avoid the biggest danger places in East Tennessee during those tornadoes. So that was the beginning of our community understanding the importance of a social community and a digital community.
The real power of social was discovered then. That's crazy. I know. Did you use Twitter a lot at that time? I know Twitter's used a lot around the world for stuff like that.
It was barely, like, coming alive at that time.
Okay.
Really, Facebook was the thing. That's
Yeah.
where a lot of the community was already there,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people were already listening and engaging and sending in notifications like, "Hey, it's black in this area," or, "Hey, like, don't come, we're worried about this," or, "There's trees down." So as soon as those started coming in, that's when I started broadcasting it everywhere and showing, like,
Yeah.
real time notifications to people of what was going on in our community.
Wow, I bet that affected you emotionally too, right? Like, hey, you get to step up in your job, but also, I know that a lot of the memories that we have in our past are tied to a real specific emotion. Tony Robbins always brings up the example of, tell me what you did on 9/11, and everyone knows in detail what happened on 9/11. He says, okay, tell me what you did on 9/10, and everyone's like, I don't know, like, because it's not tied to that emotion. So the fact that you have this story that's tied to that emotion, it's probably really one of those pivot points in your life that it was a sad time, but you're grateful that you went through it so that you could really come down the path that you're on. Is that right?
Yes, it was, and it was wild because I had spent, a lot of time trying to convince the, like, powers that be and people that had established,
Hmm.
that paper and that business, the importance of, like, these real-time notifications and what a social community really means and how it was going to help, like, pull the community together and really, like, show the importance of that news outlet versus beyond just the paper itself. And it was hard. That was a hard message for people to understand in
Hmm.
2008 and 2009,
Yeah,
but it becomes very clear in a moment.
that's awesome. And then you said you started writing poems and stuff when you were super young, like 7 or 8 years old, you said, right?
Hmm.
So I talked about this on another podcast, and the more people that I interview that have creative minds, the more and more I'm tying this together. But Jordan Peterson talks about how um, to get the ability to sort of see in the future and around the corner, which is a good strategist, a good marketing person, a good analyst, they see around the corner so that they're able to predict what their customers want better before they actually release that marketing material. Jordan Peterson says the way that you exercise that part of your brain is to do fictional writing, so that you create your own story and before it starts how it's going to end in most cases, right? And so do you feel like you're a very creative mind, you're very strategic? Do you feel like that writing at a young age lent towards that skill that you have now, to be able to see around the corner and be very strategic?
Absolutely. There's a point that it does that, but I also think it really helps with, like, at a very young age. I think its biggest help is communication. Like when
Yeah.
you're super, super young, it's hard to understand how to best communicate your emotions and your
Hmm.
feelings and others as well, and be able to connect with others in that way. And writing like really does that. That's how it's done it for me, at least.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of my strongest points is being a great communicator and being able to, and then that's a real key part to telling stories and being able to connect with
Hmm.
people and connect with audiences. And writing at a young age absolutely was a big piece of that.
That's so cool. Um, I don't feel like I had that at a young age. It was something I had to learn a little bit later on in life, and I was always jealous of people who were good at writing. I wasn't good at spelling. I'm not good at reading out loud. All of those things are the stories that I told myself. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. And until I was in my, older years where I started to become more confident in it and I started to exercise that part of my brain and do some of that fictional writing and stuff. So I'm jealous of the people who did it at a young age and are good communicators, especially with parents and stuff. I have multiple young children who I wish could communicate better how they're feeling so I know how to help them. And I bet your parents love that you are a good communicator too.
That and I was very emotional as a child, so I'm not sure they loved that part of it, but at least no one ever wondered how I was feeling. There
Yeah,
is
you
that.
you wore your emotions on your sleeve.
Exactly. But I feel you. I very much wish that my kids were a little better at communicating how they're feeling and what's going
Yeah,
on too. But it's a skill that a lot of people have to learn, and it
right.
it comes over time if you practice it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then you have this tornado, you have this experience where you're communicating through social media. What happens next?
So it became very clear within the first few years of like my professional life that that traditional print journalism route was not going to work for what I wanted. Um, from that point and further, I knew that the digital space was for me. Like that's
Mhm.
where the future is. That's where we're going. And that's where I want to sharpen my skills. Like that's what I want to be a part of. And the print world at that time was not moving fast enough to that.
Mhm.
Especially in like local regional places, like East Tennessee. Those are very old companies with very like old print mindsets, and it's really hard to shift even when big things happen. No one shifts very quickly, at least. And, as a young, early 20 something, I wanted to shift now. So
Yeah.
that became very clear. And then so marketing became like the natural transition for that. So I could really hone in on my skills, figure out how to create communities and reach people and be able to tell stories. And that was the place to go. So from there, I shifted into marketing for companies. And for a lot of it, I've realized every like big skill set that I have sharpened over the years
Mhm.
has been because the company that I was working for at the time needed this
Yeah.
and they didn't have it and we couldn't find it or it wasn't working out with whatever service we were trying to make happen.
Mhm.
So that I felt left it up to me to figure it out. So then I would just figure it out. So that came from like learning email and reach like email as a whole as a program,
Mhm.
both with like the whole platform side and managing CRMs
Mhm.
and reaching out to consumers and really like being able to engage your community in that way.
Yeah.
I learned that because my company needed it at the time. So now it's a big part of what I do.
So,
I
can I ask a
learned,
question there?
yes,
So, were you still at the newspaper company and transitioned into a marketing space, or were you hired at another company to do the marketing stuff and they just said, "Hey, see a need, fill a need, figure it out," or what was that transition like?
yes. So that was moving into companies. So
Mhm.
I moved to an e-com company after
Mhm.
that.
Okay.
So social was a big part that they were not excelling at. And then email was almost non-existent for them.
Mhm.
And really like engaging with their core clients in that way wasn't existent for them. So I created that program myself and then
Nice.
drove it. And then from that, it was test and learn, test and learn, test and learn.
Mhm.
And that's really how I've learned everything that I know now is I have built it myself or I have hunted down the person who knows way better than I do and learned from them. Like
Mm.
that has been how I've learned every one of the marketing disciplines that I'm really great at.
Mm-hmm.
I started building it alone, and then I would find the person who's the expert and do whatever I needed to do to learn from them. From there, I went from e-com then to marketing for like in the corporate world, in a hospitality company in East Tennessee. They had an entire marketing department, and then I created the digital strategy portion of that marketing department.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, ended up going into the leisure world for water sports, working for boat manufacturers and creating communities and running their CRM programs, their email
Mm.
programs, and social as well. So really, it's been a step by step, just expanding and growing process. And when I first leapt into agency life, I realized one of the big holes we had is someone who's really, really understands analytics.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people struggle with Google Analytics and other platforms, but really just understanding your business analytics as a whole and the analytics of your audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a giant hole in the industry for people that really know what they're doing and can translate that to ROI. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's one thing to understand what's your clicks,
Yeah.
what's your visit, what's your dollar value for checkout, all of these things. It's another thing to understand what does all of this mean in comparison to your business as a whole, and how do you use those insights to drive it forward?
Yeah.
Like clicks mean nothing if you don't really understand how it's driving your business forward.
Mm-hmm.
And since that was a hole, that made me dive in and figure it out myself. And then I looked around and networked and tried to find someone who really knew what they were doing in analytics to teach me.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's how I got just better and better at it. You actually met at our panel, Scott Harward. He
Yeah.
is one of the big experts who really taught me a lot in what I know about analytics.
Smart guy.
And that
Mm-hmm.
was another networking opportunity.
That's awesome. So you surround yourself with smarter people, which is great. You learn from them. So there seems like there's a lot of transitions where you were able to tackle like a specific type of marketing in each company, get better at it, surround yourself with people who make you better at it, so you're more well-rounded, right? What are some areas that were maybe hard transitions or struggles, or you thought, maybe this isn't for me? I know a lot of us kind of have this self-sabotage where you're like, I'm not really as good as maybe I portray myself to be out there. Like, tell me some of those stories or instances where you've kind of felt that way, and how did you overcome that?
Definitely. So I'm going to go two places with that.
Okay.
Especially for women, I feel like there is a lot of pressure and a lot of like just society issues where women don't feel good enough, where they don't feel like they are the expert. No matter how accomplished they are, no matter what they do in their business life or
Mm-hmm.
personal life, they never feel like it's enough. And that, of course, as a woman, I've struggled a lot with. So I know that there's a lot of other women in business who felt the same way. And so, for an example on that, like I didn't really feel like I knew enough in analytics. And when I had started, or when I was at the beginning stages for Marcor, for the company the marketing strategy company that we started,
Mm-hmm.
that analytics was a big piece that our clients needed. And I felt like we needed someone better than me to be able
Mm-hmm.
to dig in and offer this and help our clients. And what I figured out was, until I met Scott, there wasn't really anyone better than me.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt so inadequate at the beginning of it. Like,
Mm.
we just need to find a smarter person. We've got to hire someone else to do this. Someone who can have that voice of expertise for our
Mm-hmm.
clients and make our clients feel really good about the analytics that they're getting. And as we went through and sought those people out, or sought those services or those agencies out, I came to realize, after like poking holes in everything that they would deliver, that, okay, maybe I really do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I have gotten a lot better at this. I do really know what I'm doing. And I don't know anyone smarter than me at this right now. And that was really a teaching moment for myself, that I
Mm-hmm.
needed to show up in that way, both for our business and for our clients, not as this unsure. I don't feel like I'm good enough when I'm telling you all of this information. Here is our deck full of all of your analytics. Let me get someone better for you. That's not the way that I needed to be showing up anymore. It was, I'm here for a reason. I'm the expert in this. I know what these numbers mean and I know how it helps your business. And so I had made a decision after the first two clients where I'd felt very unsure of how I delivered those things
Yeah.
that I needed to stop doing this. And from now on, like, you're the expert, April. So show up like it.
That's such a good story. It's a good hinge point for you to like take every scenario in life and be like, actually, I probably am better than I'm giving myself credit for. And I think that's a great message for women out there, and really for everyone. But like my daughters, they struggle with that self confidence, and even my wife as a mom, she's not in the business world, but as a mom, she's constantly questioning, am I better? Maybe I'm not doing enough, and it's good to hear examples of stories that you just shared, like, oh, you don't like, I don't think my wife needs to go and analyze 15 other moms like you analyze 15 companies and say, oh, I actually am pretty good, right? But she has a good base and a good surrounding, and siblings and people around her that are out constantly saying you are a good mom. And hopefully that's enough, similar to what you found as you're looking at these other clients, to say I actually am good at what I do. So, and I think a lot of times, I talked about this on a podcast yesterday, where when you look at a job description, if you check off every single box on that job description, you're overqualified for the job description. You need a place to grow, and you need to grow into that job, to really excel. And I feel like you've done that throughout your career. You've taken things one by one, and whether you met the job description or not, you've been able to excel in order to get you to the next step, to where you're at now.
Exactly. It's an I'll figure it out mentality. I fully understand. So what you're talking about with your wife as a mom, that is,
Hmm.
I don't feel like that ever goes away, or at least it doesn't seem to. And
Hmm.
I struggle with that on a daily basis, even though, like, they say that if you worry about being a good mom, then you are. Like,
Yeah.
there is no reason to be worrying about it because the good moms are always worried about it. And if you're not worried about it, then, like, that's a whole other story. But all the moms out there that are constantly worried that, am I good enough? You are. Like, you are the
Yeah.
mom that your child needs. You are the mom right now that they need, and you will grow into the mom that they need as they grow and develop. And this is all true, but coming from, as a mom, that is so hard to really just internalize and understand every time that you feel like you're failing because something isn't going right.
That's a viral social media clip that I'm clipping out later and sending. That's such a powerful message. Thank you for saying that. You
Very
said that
welcome.
there were two things. Did you talk about both of those two things, or was that just one of those?
I lost what the second one was.
Okay,
Completely
no
lost it.
worries. No worries. I think that was a great message. I think it was it's understood. So let's move on. Okay, so now you're going from company to company and you're learning, you're polishing yourself. At what point do you say, I need to start my own thing?
That's the remainder for the second one right
Perfect.
there. So the number 2, the other piece is, that was the next challenge for me was leaving the corporate world and then going into and starting my own business. And
Hmm.
that was a huge transition and challenge in my mind, because I really felt like I didn't know what I was doing as far
Hmm.
as starting my own business. I had been working in the corporate world, working in small businesses, working for newspapers and working for school, and none of that phased me. But then breaking off and trying something all on my own was a real stretch. And I had that voice that,
Hmm.
you don't know what you're doing in business, you don't know how to run a business. Like, I didn't do math in school. I was a writer, so I can't like I can't go through budgeting and figuring out, like, how to run a business efficiently and
Yeah.
effectively and deal with taxes and all of the things that sounded so daunting to me. And I had really great relationships at the time, of support of people that really encouraged me, that said, why do you feel like you can't do this? Like, why do you continue? Because I thought about it for a good several years before I actually broke out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I had those relationships who had been encouraging and had said, like, none of us know what we're doing in starting business until we did. Like, people don't. And then you just take that leap and you try it and you figure it out. And what's the worst that can happen? So you start a business and it fails. That's the worst it can happen.
Yeah.
So, and what? Then you go and get another job, you start a different business. Like, there's your worst case scenario. So, that all the doom and gloom that's in your head of failing is just, it's fear that isn't necessary, that's keeping you from doing what you want to do. And finally, I listened to those voices and to myself and felt strong enough to really break out on my own. And the other part of that too was where I was at the time, working as a marketing director. I had created so many programs and instilled such a path for this company to move forward and really like progress digitally and like have a real digital presence and a real digital audience that they could then monetize and use for like for further events and for e-com and for so many ways. And they weren't acting on it. So I had created all of this structure. I had put all of this work into it and poured my heart and soul out for this company in particular for years. And it was going stagnant, wasn't being used to the way that I had planned to use it and the capabilities that it had. So, and same with these relationships, it was, if you're pouring your heart out and soul for years for another company that's not taking advantage, then why can't I do that for myself and my company? So that really pushed me to do that. So I did. And I told that company I was going to create my own. And I was going to start two companies, actually. The first was Ginger Organics, which is my e-com brand, my little indie beauty company, where I am the sole owner and creator of everything. And it is just it's a little heart and soul project.
Nice.
And then shortly after that, I also co-founded Markor with my partner and a few partners. So I really just jumped off the cliff and went with it. And I'm so happy that I had those voices of support behind me. I'm not sure how much longer it would have taken me to take that leap without that support, but it makes a difference.
That's awesome. How long from starting it did it take you until you're like, okay, I got this? Like, I'm sure the first little bit was rough and telling yourself, oh, did I make the right decision? How long until you were confident in that move?
Till I felt like I made the right decision. That probably took a year. And although I knew immediately, I honestly knew immediately when I left the company that I did and started working for myself, I knew that was the right decision. But every time there's a setback, and there are a million setbacks when you start your own thing, like there's always going to be some kind of fire and some kind of chaos. And when those happen, those voices of doubt creep in. And it's, did I do the right thing? Am I going to succeed? That always creeps in. So it took about a year until I calmed those creeping in voices down and really settled into knowing that, no, this is the path, hell or high water, that I'm pursuing. And I'm not going to give up.
Nice.
Until I felt like things are awesome and we're stable and I am rocking this business world for the businesses that I've created, we're still working. That is a work in progress.
Nice. So what are you currently working on? And what are some of your projects that excite you, that get you up in the morning? Tell us about that.
Man. So for one, another thing that I do is I am on the marketing chapter leadership for Silicon Slopes for the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter. So I partner with 3 others, and we are creating a marketing summit in April. And it is going to be like Tech Summit, but very marketing focused. We'll have a B2B and a B2C track. And I have done a lot of event marketing throughout my career. In the last corporate company that I worked at, event marketing was a huge part of what we did and what I was over. And so to be able to bring all of this together, and as part of my leadership and what I do is I'm really part of an initiative to bring more women into, not just into Silicon Slopes and into that community as a whole, but really forward in Utah business community as a whole.
Yeah.
And I see Silicon Slopes as a big piece of that because there's such a presence in our community. But our whole country is very unfriendly to women in business. And our community truly needs a lot of help in being more inclusive and supportive. So it's one thing to say that you are inclusive to others in a community and be there to be welcoming. It's another thing to truly support women. Yeah. So to do that takes a lot more work than just saying we're inclusive, we show up. So I'm part of that initiative to really support and bring women in business into our community and be open-armed and really just help support and teach and advance women here.
So if there's a lot of business owners that listen to the podcast, what recommendations would you have for them to not just say, but be inclusive?
Yes. So a lot of, especially in our community, a lot of women are mothers, of course. And it is a whole other thing to be a working mom, which I have very much recently learned, especially for young children. And to truly be of support for moms, you have to be flexible. Companies that are listening to this, like there needs to be flexibility. And when you provide that, when you provide support and flexibility for mothers in your business, they will show up and they will show up tenfold and be excited about the work that they're doing because they feel that support. It creates so much anxiety for moms when they are working at a company that they don't feel supported at as a mother. So if they are expected to drop everything at any moment, including their children, to show up for that company, that's not being supportive. Your children are always going to come first for moms. And that doesn't mean every second of every day, and they're never going to be able to show up for the company that they're in. It's that when something comes up, when a mom needs to be there for her children, you need to support that. That is key number one. Support moms in your company and support moms in this community. We are made up of moms, that we're here because of moms. So if we're not supporting mothers, then it's really just spitting in their faces.
So flexibility is huge. Anything else?
Leaving space for them to be who they are. So there are going to be days where we have a really awesome day. Baby's sleeping. I'm showing up. I'm going to get so much done today. This is one of those great times. And we are going to bring so much of that energy and so much of that understanding and emotional intelligence to our position and what we're doing into our company. And then there are going to be days that baby didn't sleep at all, or kids are having issues, or mom is overwhelmed. And there's just a never ending cycle to what moms have to deal with on a daily basis. So providing space for moms to be who they are and be authentic and open about that and be accepted for it is huge. Because otherwise you have mothers, or we have people in general making excuses when they can't show up authentically as who they are. Then they're just going to make up an excuse or lie or try to dodge and get around and cover up just to be able to show up and keep their position. If you have that space for people to be open and authentic to who they are without judgment and without repercussions, then you're really allowing everyone, not just mothers, but you're allowing the people who show up and work for you to be who they are and bring whatever their special talents and emotional intelligence and this special side of them to work as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think that it's, if I can just add to that as well, I think it's important as a leader and as an owner to let your people know, to let the women in the workforce know that you're willing to do that. Because a lot of times we come to work with this a different personality, right? And we're on our work personality, And as an employee, I would never ask something of that of my employer. But if the employer comes out and says, here's where I'm willing to support you with flexibility, with this, with that, whatever, then as an employee, I feel more comfortable coming and saying, hey, my kid needs me. I need to take care of this, right? Where with that professional sort of front that you put on, a lot of times you might be intimidated to ask for that, right?
100%. That is exactly what you're saying. So there's, corporate face, like
Mhm.
corporate April is this, and would never say, I have to go home and grab my kids because something's wrong. It Getting rid of that whole concept at your company is key.
Mhm.
So, and that not means not just letting the moms and the people that work for you know that, it's representing that as well. So, for instance, at my company, I don't make excuses. I don't say some kind of other reason if I need to rush home to be with my kids,
Mhm.
or if I have to step out for an hour because I have to run kids to some kind of an appointment. I say that. Like there is no putting on this other persona in this
Yeah.
space so that we seem as professional as possible. I am professional and I am a working mom and I'm brilliant and I know what I'm doing. And I'm also going to always take care of my kid first when I need to.
Mhm.
So that's the way that it runs at my company. And showing that and being that is the best way to make sure that everyone else that's here and works for me knows that they can too.
Yeah, it gives them that permission to do it. That's awesome. Good for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so so Silicon Slopes, that's one piece. What else are you working on that excites you right now?
Other places where I can create events or add value to really open up a space for women and for working moms. So earlier last year, before actually I was even part of Silicon Slopes, I had put on an event at Kiln for open to
Mm.
all women who wanted to either explore being entrepreneurs or wanted to explore how to better brand and market and tell their stories themselves, or how to advance in their career wherever they were at. So really, it was just an open public um, forum
Mm.
to invite women in. And then I was going to share my expertise on branding and storytelling in LinkedIn with them to try to help basically like, this is how really examine how it is that you show up professionally and how you want to tell your story so
Mhm.
that you can further advance whether it is that you want to advance your career in corporate or you want to step out and really become an entrepreneur, or you're a mom and you're just now stepping into the business world because now you want to become in the business world yourself.
Yeah. That's great. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's jump into tactics and strategy. If I'm a business owner out there, um, what tactics and strategies do you recommend that I can do to elevate myself online? And let me put a caveat to that. I'm fine if you want to talk about like a specific digital marketing thing, or if you want to focus on if I'm a woman and going into this, here's what I'd recommend as well. So whatever angle you want to take on that is fine. I just want to be tactical so that people in those positions, whether you're, a women run business or not, here's how I can elevate myself digitally.
Gotcha. So that is such a wide world and there's so many places to dig into there, but
Hmm.
I'll start with in the community that we are in, and not just Utah, but this country as a whole is very unfriendly to women in business. If you want to start something, do it.
Mm.
If you want to
Yeah.
break out of where you're at and you want to start something on your own, do it. No matter the challenges that you will face in doing something on your own, you've already faced those challenges in the corporate space as a woman. You've
Hmm.
already faced so much. You have overcome so much adversity and misogyny and a system that's really not built for you. So if you want to break out and do your own, do it. You will not regret it. No matter what it is, even if you fail at it, you won't regret that. So I'll start there
Okay. Yeah.
on like actually digging into tactics.
Hmm.
That is, if we're going to step all the way back to you're just going to start now and you want to know how to like better brand yourself, before you start your own brand or your own company, or you are looking to connect with others and break out and do that. Because partnership is always a great way to be able to start your own company and still have your own control, but also have a lot of help and support along the way, especially other women helping you in this partnership, because there is a lot of funding out there for women, especially in our community. There's funding for women who want to start. So if you want to understand more about that, like reach out to me, please, and I will help. But there is support for you. It's just about reaching out and finding it. And the start of that is the biggest and easiest place to start is your LinkedIn presence. Like that is the way you start digitally to represent who you are and be able to connect with others in the business world, including other founders and funders who are on board and want to support you. So I definitely recommend focusing on your LinkedIn presence. And it is so hard, especially for women, to talk about ourselves and what we're good at and what our mission is, what our real strengths are. Those are the pieces that you need to focus on first. It is very hard to do, but you've got to try to separate yourself and your emotion from that and know that you are good enough. This is your mission. And there's someone out there and there's people out there that will understand and support it. So focus on that story first, who you are, what you want to do, what your mission is, and your why, essentially. That's your reason and your brand. Get that started on LinkedIn if you haven't already, and then search LinkedIn for people that are like you. And that is really simple. There are a lot of different ways to search on LinkedIn for both like groups and communities of people that are like you. For women in business, that's one of them right there. Like do that search right now in Utah. There you go. Like connect with others there. Connect with me. There are also a lot of funders that work for, that are in Pelion and also in Origin that are actively looking for to help support women startups. So reach out now, like start that community now, and then find others that are in that same mindset. And you can do that search weekly. Like you can continually look for new people that are going to support you, that are going to help you through this process. So that's my biggest tactical is start drafting and writing down that story of you. Start searching on LinkedIn, find your community, and reach out to those people. Just send a message. And you can you can make a goal for yourself of sending to X amount of people a week. I want to connect with you. I love what your mission is and what you're going for. This is what I want to do. Can we connect and help one another? It's that simple. And it takes consistency of showing up and responding to people when they respond back to you. It's just like being in any other community in real life. You're going to get a better payoff if you show up authentically and if you respond and you really put some effort into it. If you are already a woman in business and you are trying to run a brand and you are overwhelmed with the amount of different digital marketing tactics and disciplines out there to help move your brand forward. And everything is just so overwhelming with how the world is changing, and especially because of AI. AI is overwhelming a lot of people. A lot of people don't know what that means for their future as far as marketing disciplines or how it's going to shape their position going forward or how it's going to shape their discipline in general. And the best thing that I can tell a business owner for how to grow your business right now, no matter what happens to whatever social channels, no matter what happens to Google search as a result of AI, no matter what happens in our future for any of these disciplines, your audience is the most valuable thing you have. So whatever your audience is right now for your brand and your business, focus on them. And a lot of that goes back to like my original discipline, which is email, is that doesn't disappear. So social channels come and go. Social platforms ebb and flow. Meta is a nightmare and they will constantly give you a headache and try to make it harder in every way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't don't put your focus there. If you're looking at how do I really streamline and put my focus into one thing that's going to make the biggest difference for my brand right now, focus on your current audience and how to engage with them, and focus on how to communicate with them, particularly via email, because you don't lose that. If your audience has given you their email and their contact information, they want to be part of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
They are invested in you enough. So nurture that. That is the biggest tactic that I would say. And how you nurture that best is to engage with your current audience base, reach out to them,
Mm-hmm.
craft a very heartfelt and authentic message to them in an email this week. Reach out to them, ask them questions, ask them how you can better nurture them or provide value to them. Those answers are going to be just illuminating to how you can really take care of your people and your audience and make them fans for life.
That's such a good tip. I think a lot of people don't start with email because they're worried they're going to say something wrong or offend people. I love the advice of capturing the audience through email, because if your audience is all on Facebook and Facebook changes things, you lose things. If your audience is all on Google and Google changes things, you lose everything, right? If you have them on email and supplemented by the other places, and one of those other places change, then you still have that email to go back to. So I love the tip of being authentic. Reach out and ask, what do you need? How can I help you? It doesn't have to be this marketing / salesy email. It doesn't have to be a fancy drip campaign to try to convert somebody to more sales. Just reach out and say, what do you need? How can we help you as a business? I think that's super powerful, and everybody can do that, right?
Exactly. 100%. That's exactly what I'm trying to say is no matter what happens to any of the places. And I say this from experience. So Meta disabled my main account over a year and a half ago, and it damaged everything that I had been working on in social for multiple brands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a huge loss. And I'm not the only one. I've seen it happen so many times over the past 5 years or so for multiple brands. And it is a hard hit. But if the core of your audience, you already have them, if you have them in email, and it doesn't matter if you lose a channel like that. Mm-hmm. So that's really where your people are. And it takes nothing to gain attention and views on a social media platform. That's not true engagement. And it's not true loyal fanship. Mm-hmm. Your loyal fans are the people who've trusted you enough to give their email and their information. So those are the people that truly matter anyway. Mm-hmm. Not that social platforms aren't a great tool, because they are. Mm-hmm. If you feel great about where you're at with your email program, absolutely. Focus on social channels, know where your audience is on those social channels and focus on them there. Then it's backed up and supported, and you're talking to your audience in all the places in which they want to engage. Yeah. But your sole focus, if you are overwhelmed and you're starting out and you need to know, if I can't pay attention to all of these channels all of the time and I don't know what to do, that's where you focus. That should be number one priority.
Nice. Great advice. Any other tactics that you can think of that you'd like to talk about?
So I can get just further into how you really create a successful email program, tactic wise, because that would be, as well as LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's similar in that crafting messages that are authentic and reaching your people is where the core of this lies. So that's your content, really being sincere about your content and knowing what can reach your audience is the most important. Knowing what they want and what they need and how you can really answer those questions for them. That's the key of all of it. But tactics wise, getting into specific places and programs, if you're starting and you've got nothing right now, or you have just very little for your audience for contact information, but you've got something, mm-hmm. you have a list of customers and clients, that's where you start. Mm-hmm. Take this list and put it into any of the email programs. So MailChimp, Klaviyo, whatever it is that you want to work from, they all start out on the low end free. So that's easy and somewhere to start right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you are already there, you already have all of your clients in one program, one place, awesome. But you don't know how to actually like craft a program, craft a journey, craft what should be your bare bones of your email program and your client journey or customer journey, then there are a lot of keys and tools in those programs to get you started. A lot of them will have prompts and setups in their like marketing automation center. If it's an e-com business where it's a lot of that's cart driven. So there will be abandoned carts or abandoned checkout prompts. Those are places to start, at least just to capture the e-com business that you could be missing.
Mm-hmm.
And at each of those places, you want to prompt those users to come into the fold and be part of your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So in each of those touch points, you want to craft a message that really resonates to your brand and who you are and to the audience that you want to have that would give them a reason to want to be part of come into your fold. So give them a reason why they would want to register for your newsletter. Give them a reason why they'd want to register for updates.
Mm-hmm.
If it's because you are going to have specific like members only discounts or members only whatever, be upfront and state that. Give people a reason to want to subscribe right now.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just another email in their inbox. So the best way to convert people in those places are register right now for our group. This is what I'm going to provide and give you with that registration. This is why you'd want to do it. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as simple as that. You want to thank people. You want to tell them exactly what they should expect from you and your product, your brand, whatever it is. And then the reason why they should start right now. And if it's a B2B service and it's more about your service and what you're providing versus an e-com, then that is a place to get even more personal and authentic and tell people why they would want to be part of your community.
Mm.
So that's really about providing value right now that's not product based.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to your why, that original discussion on why did you create this business? Why do you show up every day? What does it mean to you? Distill that down in a few sentences. So you can have your longer story of who you are and how you got to where you're at. All of that can be your LinkedIn profile. That can be on your website. That can be in pitches. But when you're trying to just gain an audience, an email audience online,
Mm-hmm.
distill that down into a couple of sentences and put it everywhere you can, all the touch points on your user journey so that you are trying to capture authentically as many people that have any interest in what you're offering as possible. Have that all go into your platform, whether that's MailChimp, Klaviyo, Salesforce, whatever it is. Those people who opt in, like those are your biggest and truest fans, and you've started step one just by getting them to click yes.
Mm-hmm.
And once they do, now you can really engage with them and live up to that. If you've told them they'll not be spammed in email and you'll only be emailing them weekly, do that.
Yeah,
Live
don't
to that
spam.
promise.
Yeah.
Don't spam them.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have anything important to say in your email, don't send it.
Mm.
Only send an email that gives value. So when you're thinking about that journey, that first touch point is wherever you captured them on your website or on social, wherever it is that they opted in. That's touch point number one.
Mm-hmm.
Think really hard about touch point number two and what that next email is, because it needs to live up to what your why is. It needs to live up to whatever you promised in those few sentences to get them to convert,
Mm-hmm.
and provide that in email number two. And right there, email number one, email number two, like that's the basis of what you truly need for a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else can expand from there, but get those right. When you nail those on the head, that's where you've really started to figure out how to interact and engage with your audience. From there, you can start asking the questions of how do I provide more value to you?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want and need from me? You can ask those periodically throughout your entire lifespan of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Like always want to check back in and figure out what provides the most value. But you start right there with those 2 touch points. Number 1, how do you get them in? Number 2, live up to those promises in that second round.
Those are super valuable insights and tactics. And I think a lot of companies, they really do struggle with that. I think that like you can go on the internet and search multiple companies, and it's very hard to find out how to get on their email list. Right. So like if you're a company
Mhm.
out there and you don't have a way for somebody to get on your email list, go fix that right now. Just use the
Yes.
tactics that April just talked about and go fix that right now. And then figure it out later. Figure out after the 2 steps that you talked about.
Mhm.
It's not that hard, right? Like ask your audience what they want. And all of these companies like MailChimp and Klaviyo and all those, they have these templates that can teach you how to do it. So don't and
Mhm.
YouTube's a great resource. Go to YouTube and figure out, just say, what do I do next? You'll have lots of different ideas on how to nurture that audience and make them become real fans of your stuff.
Yeah, and there will constantly be different prompts to, like, continue to expand and test all of these pieces and these things, and that can look overwhelming if you are especially if you're a small sole business owner
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot taxing on your time and a working mom,
Yeah.
then it's overwhelming to think about how many emails can go out and how many emails you can focus on.
Yeah.
But start with that 1 and 2, and that's really, like, where you start grabbing people and start engaging and start getting attention and providing value. Like, that's what is the biggest point of that, and there
Right.
are templates everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But my advice would be to just start with the template. It's the messaging that needs to be all you
Mm-hmm.
is gonna be really important. So, the design, yes, that has some
Yeah.
importance to it, and those templates are great for you to start with a place of design, but the messaging, and that's a little biased because 'cause I'm a writer, storyteller, and that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
And in fairness, the vast majority of people do not read very far these days,
Yeah.
but I still think it's incredibly important, your language and what you say and what you promise. So focus on that first. And then everything else you can set a goal every other week to go back and test and reassess and look at what worked and what didn't and decide whether or not you're ready to move on to number 3 or number
Yeah.
4 or whatever else that you need to craft. But this week, next week, since it's Friday,
Mm-hmm.
you can start creating that 1 and 2 email touch points and have that done by the week after next. And you've started. You've really done something for your business that will help move it forward and help create and gain that audience right now. Because when that's up and running, when you are succeeding at that,
Mm-hmm.
whether you have 100 people in your list or you have 100,000 people in your list or 1,000,000, if those are people that care about your messaging, about who you are, about your why, then those are highly valuable,
Yeah.
no matter how many of them you have.
Right.
And 100 people that care about your why as a business owner or your product, your brand, and your why, regardless, 100 people that truly care are worth more than 10,000 that don't.
Yeah.
Because you can email the crap out of 10,000 people, and if they don't care about what you have to offer, it does not matter, and it is such a waste of time.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to talk to the 100 that care, that's where your energy needs to go.
That's so good. Um, well, April, that this has been a pleasure. I can't even tell you how much I've learned from this. I'm grateful for the conversation about helping women, about the email marketing. There's so much good that you've said today that I'm just grateful that you've been able to join us on the show today. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Eli. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, okay. So I ask 2 questions at the end of every podcast, and then I want to make sure that people know how to find you. But I want to ask these 2 questions first. So the first question is, if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what would that be?
It would be not to stress so hard about the whatever the task or detail that's right in front of me is.
Okay.
I have always had ADHD and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of anxiety, and growing up, I didn't even know what those were, but I definitely suffered from them, and so everything was important
Yeah.
all the time. Whatever I was doing and working on, and for me, my grades were incredibly important,
Mm-hmm.
and I stressed about every single test every single presentation, every single thing I had to show up for was so do or die.
Yeah.
And that extended into professional life for me, where every client presentation, every C-suite, every presentation that I had to give, and every time that I needed to turn something in, it was so overly stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look back at those moments, none of them really mattered. Like, this little grade on this thing didn't really matter. No one cares what my GPA is anymore. And that
Right.
was remarkably important to me for no good reason.
Yeah.
And no one cares about this one presentation that I had to give this one time. Like, you don't ever think about those moments later, but at the time they're so incredibly stressful and it just isn't worth it. So if I could go back, I would tell younger me, this is not as do or die as I think it is, and to just relax. Like, put in your best effort and then let it go.
Nice. Good advice. Okay, last question is, do you have any books, podcasts, or leaders that currently inspire you?
There are a lot. And so podcast is where I get my constantly learning and engagement and information from other people that I'm looking to learn from. Books is my escape.
Okay.
So books is fiction and fun and escape for me. But podcasts are I'm looking for someone like me and people that can encourage me. So right now, as a mother of a new infant, I'm constantly on the mommy podcast. So there's one literally called New Mama's Podcast. That's one that I'm on, but I am deep into that New Mama World podcast right now. In real life, is where there are leaders that really inspire me right now. And I'm constantly engaging and following with them. Since LinkedIn is my jam, absolutely props out to Nicole Harrop. She is another working mom in our community. She is on the Silicon Flips marketing chapter with me. And I get so much inspiration from her and what she does and how she shows up authentically online all the time. She is great to follow on LinkedIn. She really knows what she's doing there. And that if you want to learn how to be authentic and cultivate an audience on LinkedIn, she's a great person to follow. And then Rachel Kottman, she's a Utah business leader as well. And she is very present on LinkedIn and really cultivates an audience there too. And she's very much front and center for women in business and how do we support women in Utah and how do we really create a space and an atmosphere that will help women thrive. Yeah. So definitely I would recommend following them and engaging with them there. And then personally, one of my great friends, Natalie Hastings, she really helped encourage me on breaking out and creating my own business and knowing that I'm good enough as a working mom. So those are the people that inspire me all the time.
I love that. How can people get in touch with you, April, if they want to reach out?
LinkedIn, obviously. So look at me on LinkedIn. I am definitely present there. You can reach out to me anytime. You can also reach out to me and check things out on Marcor's website, marcor.com. You can also come to any of our Silicon Slopes marketing chapter events. Definitely April 10th, come check us out at the Marketing Summit because it's going to be incredible. And that is what I'm super excited about making happen in the next couple of months. And then if you are interested in clean, authentic, super sensitive skincare, then go to gingerganics.com. Not just for you, but also for babies, for all the mamas out there. Come check it out.
Very awesome. How do you spell the Gingerganics?
Gingerganics, exactly how it sounds. It's GINGERGANICS. And we're also on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, yada yada.
Awesome. I'll put it up on the screen for people watching it on YouTube, but I wanted it spelled out so people who are listening knew where to go as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's great. A lot of places to get in touch with you. Thank you so much again for taking the time today and getting on and educating us all on on your life and everything that you value. I think it was a great podcast. I think a lot of people are going to listen to it. So thank you so much for taking the time.
I appreciate it, Eli. I'm very happy that you asked and so glad that we met. So thank you.
You bet. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode today. Listen, I know how valuable an hour of your time can be, and for you to take that busy time out of your day and spend it with us, it really means a lot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking and subscribing on whatever platform you're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the interview. Ask us questions. Let us know what other digital topics you'd like to hear about in the future. We're here to add value to your life and elevate your digital presence online. If you'd like some help doing that, reach out to me at fireusmarketing.com. See you on the next one.